for anybody else new to this workshop, you can see this side toolbar here. A really handy tool here. So I can click on the circle and I can draw a little an ellipse on my chart. And of course the arrows are always helpful, like this. It's a great toolbar, and I know for sure you can find it on Big Mike's, and I believe it's also available on NinjaTrader's download site, and it loads on your chart as an indicator. So if you go into your indicator window, it is this. It's called Toolbar Shortcut. So if you're looking on NinjaTrader's site or Big Mike's, just do a search for Toolbar Shortcut. I believe it's all one word. So I'll try searching for one word first. Alright. Yeah. Really, this toolbar is really handy when you're building some complex BloodHound systems. So I'll just see if I can give you a quick example here. So this is this is the BloodHound file from a couple weeks ago, May 30th. And let's see. So just kind of trying to give you guys, anybody new in here, an example of how I use that toolbar shortcut. Let's see. All right, yeah. So this solver here is looking at the EMA 200 period, and it's an inflection solver. So we're looking for an inflection of the 200 EMA, and yeah. So here we go. I believe this white light's probably the 200 EMA. No, that's the 50. Let's see. So it's the red one. Alright, so it's this thinner red line here is the 200 EMA. Right, so we're getting a signal from this one solver here. Oh, that arrow must be coming from an indicator. So the way I use this toolbar is I can mark on the chart, where various solvers are giving me an output, so I can visually reference it later on. So I could mark this with a double arrow, and then if I want to look at this solver here, so this is kind of when I'm debugging my system, and I can see, oh look, that solver is giving me a signal 1 bar later, and I could just mark this something like that. That's probably a bad idea. If I just put a green dot for the other solver, right? So that you can see this toolbar is allowing me to kind of mark up my chart quickly and allow me to reference, where each bar, different solvers are firing on. So it's kind of helpful when you're building a system and you're trying to get your your solvers to line up with each other, to give you one final ultimate signal. So, but as you attend these workshops and watch the videos, you'll see me using this toolbar quite a bit, and you'll pick up on it. So, all right, let me clear out all the objects on here. And okay, so let me get back to Dan's question about divergence. Alright, so I'm going to need a moment to set my chart up. Let's see, I'll just clear everything out here. And Dan had mentioned the TSI indicator, so let me get this loaded up on here. Let's see. Just reading up on this indicator real quick. Overbought, oversold. Okay, yeah. TSI. Alright, so this is an oscillator of sorts. And let's make this a little thicker and a little brighter. Alright, so yeah, this looks like it make a great indicator for checking divergence. Yeah, I can see one here possibly, you know, something like that. So see if I can find some better ones. Okay, here's a nice divergence. So let's check that out versus this. Alright, so next up, let's see, I need to get the divergence template that Daniel had built. And I just need to make sure I have it loaded here. Alright, just a moment folks while I go. I've got that divergence template saved somewhere else. I just need to go find it and put it in this VMware here. So for anybody who would like this divergence template, just send me an email, right? Just send an email in here and just ask for it, and we'll email it back to you guys. And this is the divergence template that Daniel Roe had come up with a while back. So there's for anybody new here, there's a recorded workshop video with Daniel, and he explains how he built this divergence template. He kind of explains what the indicators are doing and what the solvers are doing in BloodHound. So you can find that video up on YouTube. I think if you just do a search for BloodHound workshop and then the word divergence up on YouTube, then you'll find that video. And alright, I think I found it. So I'm going to go, you know, let me back up a moment for anybody new. So I already have BloodHound on my chart. When I loaded up that chart template, right, it put BloodHound on my chart already. And so once BloodHound's on your chart, you have this button up here now, and this button is what opens up the BloodHound interface. So right now there's no saved file loaded into BloodHound, so that's why it says empty template. So I can click on the button here, and we can see the name here is blank, so we don't have any template loaded. You know, if we wanted to start a template from scratch, a brand new template, then we can hit the change button here, and it opens up the save as dialog box, and we can just type in a name and you know, give your BloodHound file a name, and that's how you would get started to create a new BloodHound file. But I'm going to work with a file that Daniel had built. So what I did is went up to File and clicked the Open button, and let's see, there we go. There's the, I believe that's the system. And alright, yep, it kind of looks like it. So let me switch over to the Logic tab. And okay, so we have a MACD divergence here already built, and I will just have to find the solver that's looking at the MACD, and we'll have to switch it over to the TSI indicator. So alright, So one thing to note, when you open a new BloodHound file, right, we have to get NinjaTrader to build all the data for all the new indicators that are used in this new BloodHound file. Right, so what that means is you can see this little dialog text down here. It says press F5 to update the chart. Right, so we press F5 and get the chart updated. And there we go. So there's some divergences based off of the MACD, and we'll have to switch this over to the TSI indicator. And let me see, the TSI is using a 3 and a 14. I'm just using the default. So we got a fast 3 and a slow 14. Alright, so let's open up BloodHound here, and what we're going to have to do is I'll have to dissect each of these solvers here with you so we can figure out which one of these solvers is actually looking at the MACD indicator, and we can switch it out for the TSI indicator. So, and I'm going to have to, Daniel built this, so I don't know exactly how this thing works off the top of my head. But thankfully, it looks like Daniel has labeled these very well. So I can see these solvers over here are labeled MACD and then the Dawn chain channel. Let's see. Alright, so one thing I'm going to need to do is put some of these indicators on here. Let's see, Dawn chain. He's got the MAC, so I can see here. Let me open this up a little more. So I can see he has the MACD indicator nested into the Dawn chain for this solver. Let's see. Yeah, so this is a comparison solver. So if I open up this indicator window, yep, so I can see he's got the MACD nested into the Dawn chain. Alright, so a bunch of these solvers will have to be switched over, and I'm going to look around here and see what else we have. Look at the next solver down. So he's using Chameleon. Let's see, HL. So once again, he's named his solvers pretty well. So I'm going to assume that HL stands for high-low because I can see we're using the Chameleon here. And if I open this up, yep, see we're using the high and the low values in the solver, and then he's comparing that to the Dawn chain indicator with a 60 period value. So let me add the Dawn chain to the chart. Alright, I'll make these colors a little more visible. Alright, Dodge blue. I don't think we need the mean plot, but I'll just leave it on. Alright, so here's the Dawn chain indicator. Alright, so we can see that what it's kind of doing is it's kind of tracking price as it's coming down. So it's kind of keeping track of the lowest price value, and looking back 60 bars. So I think with a period of 60, this indicator is looking back 60 bars, right, to keep track of the lowest price here, and then as price, we can see as price starts moving up, it's tracking the high price, as price is moving up. So like from this point right here where this little dot is, if we count back 60 bars, right, it's tracking the highest price looking back 60 bars. Alright, so let's get back to BloodHound and look through more of these solvers and see if there's any other indicators I need to add to my chart so I can see what's going on. Let's see that bar direction. Let's see this doji. Yeah, I think this group right here. Let's see what that group is doing. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but I'm going to show you guys how to figure out what it is yourself. So I'm going to take the result node here, and I'm going to plug this OR node in, right? Because we can see that this is basically a group here, and it's all plugged into the OR node. So I'll plug it in here, and yes. So what that group is telling me is the direction of the bar. So we can see it's matching the direction of the bar, and let me scale out here and get rid of those moving averages that we don't need. These two bars here that are dojis, and so that's why he built this group here. So look, if we take a look at this bar direction solver, you see how all the dojis don't have any output from the bar direction solver, and that's because the bar direction solver requires a minimum body size of 1 tick. Right, so the body size has to be at least 1 tick to have a bar direction. Let's see, we could probably, like I think probably this guy right here is probably like a 1 tick body, versus this doji that has no body. So what Daniel has done is he's built these two solvers that look for dojis, and you so something like on a range, right? So I'm on a range chart, and so a range chart we can see sometimes has these dojis, but the doji is always at the high or the low. So we're making the assumption that with the doji at the high of the bar, right, that's considered an up bar. And we can see that pretty clearly by BloodHound's output here. And so these dojis over here, where the doji's at the low of the bar, we're assuming that those are down bars. So, we can see we're looking at this AND node. So Daniel built this little system that works for dojis, or basically works for range bars. And so he put the bar direction and this here, so you can even name your AND node. So I can rename these logic nodes so I can tell what they're doing with all the other solvers plugged into them. So I can zoom in here. So now if I read my and node, I can say, oh, so these two guys are looking for a doji direction, right, just as I can see on my chart. And then this OR node is kind of like an ultimate bar direction. So I guess I can rename this better and call it the ultimate bar direction. And I'll shorten the name up a little bit. So if I take a look at this OR node again, so now we can see that every bar has a bar direction in it somewhere. Alright, I'm going to get rid of those chart objects. Alright, so let's move down the list and take a little further and see what this solver's doing. Let's see, closing price. Okay, so he's just simply looking for price to change direction. He's looking for the closing price to change direction. So there's no indicator involved here. And if I plug that in and take a look, and let's see. Oh, I see. Interesting. He's got a look back period of 5. So he's kind of taking the inflection of price. So for example, like right here, we had price inflect. So price came down and then it came back up. And he kind of extended this for 5 bars forward. So we can see every time BloodHound changes color, and that's because the price is changing direction. It's kind of hard to see when you're on a bar chart like this. You know, if I switch this over to a line chart, and let's change the color here. Let's make it white. So now this is going to make a little more sense. So this is a line on the closing price. So now we can see every time price reverses down, right, we're getting a short output, and then it reverses back up, we're getting a long output. So Daniel is looking when, so this part of the divergence system is looking for price to change direction. Right, so that's kind of a key component of looking for a divergence. Let's see here, let me oh, I had erased my lines of the divergence. Let me draw them again. So if we take a look at that, Sorry, it looks like I had my mic. Yeah, I guess you guys were hearing me coughing, but you weren't hearing me talking. Oh my gosh, sorry about that, guys. Whenever I'm coughing, I'm just quickly trying to hit my mic button, which is off to the side, and I'm not actually looking at it. And it looks like I had the button reversed. Thought I was muting when I was actually unmuting when I was coughing. I'm really sorry about that, guys. Let's see. So how much did you guys miss? Only about a minute. Okay, thanks, Percy. So I guess you guys didn't miss much. I think I just I'm assuming that the sound I mixed the sound up when I started switching all these solvers over from the MACD to the TSI. Was that what longer than that? All right. Well, let me backtrack a little bit, guys. Let's see. Did you guys hear the part where I was talking about these solvers down here? Michael says no. Okay. Shoot. All right. Well, okay, so I'll start over again here. So this indicator was set to the MACD, and essentially I was just kind of going through these solvers and just looking to see if any of them were referencing the MACD. I don't know what their exact use is. I just, I know they're working. So I was just noting that, this was essentially a slope solver. So for whatever reason, Daniel found that looking at the slope of the indicator, right, the indicator that's being used for the divergence, is critical for deciding, what we're looking at. Let's see. So Daniel, so what this if-then node is doing is, right, depending on the slope of the indicator, either a price reversal, I can tell by looking at the name here of this logic node that he's got a system built here that looks at price reversal. So we can take a look at that. I can take this OR node, plug it into the result, and we can see, yeah, these just has some kind of system that looks for price reversing here. Kind of a complex inflection solver in a way. So I'm going to make this line a little thicker here. Yeah, so I can tell by looking at BloodHound's output that, yeah, it's just looking at when price reverses. Let's see. Yeah, that's what it's doing here. Looks like you built in some special cases here. Let me show you. So I notice when price is flat here, price is flat for 3 bars, and in the middle bar we have a long and a short. So I don't know if that's important for something, but he definitely has some kind of unique price reversal system that he built here. And these solvers are only looking at the price. So there's nothing that needs to be changed with these solvers. So he's looking at the closing price versus Chameleon, right? And Chameleon, all that does is that looks at price as well. And if I look at the name of the solver, I can see he's looking at the closing price of the current bar, and he's checking to see if it equals the closing price of 1 bar back. So this 1 in the square brackets, it denotes that he's looking one bar backwards, one bar back. Let's see, this solver here, assuming by looking at the names, checking to see if the closing price equals the high or the low value. Yeah, so once again, he's got the closing price and indicator A, and he's using chameleon, so yeah, so he's comparing it to the high or the low, and he's checking to see if they're equal. And the way he's doing that is he's using this neutral output. So on the long output, he's using this neutral zone, and for the short output, he's using this neutral zone. And it's a neutral zone of 0 ticks. Right, so 0 ticks above, 0 ticks below. So he's checking to see if they equal each other exactly. Yeah, so this is some kind of reversing system. This solver down here, it's looking at the inflection of the indicator. And let me change the name on this. Alright, so I've got that solver plugged in. So we can see, yeah, we can see down here, it's just checking to see whenever the indicator changes direction. Right, so that's a critical part of looking at a, looking for a divergence, right? You need the indicator, right, to change direction to make a peak, right? And you also need price to change direction, which makes a peak or a swing point. So I think that's what this solver is doing, is it's looking for the indicator, right, to make a swing point. So, right. Okay, and so then after I was done talking about all these solvers down here, what I was talking about is, as you saw me, I just went through each of these solvers and just switched the MACD over to the TSI indicator. That's all I had to do. I didn't change anything in the solvers. I just replaced the MACD with the TSI indicator. So I see Mike is asking for a copy of this template. So yeah, so just anybody who wants a copy of this template, just send an email in to support. Right, send an email in here to support, and we'll get you a copy of this template for today. All right, let me continue on here. All right, so I think the final step here is we'll connect the signal output back to the result node. And take a look at our chart and see if we get any signals. There we go. Looks like we're getting one. We might have to fine-tune this a little bit, since not all indicators kind of move the same. So with the MACD, moving slightly different than the TSI, we might have to modify this divergence system a little bit. But looks like it picked up one divergence here. Looks like it's missing one here, so let's see if I can figure out which solvers we need to modify to get this to work here. Let's see. Oh, so one more thing I need to add to my chart. One more indicator I need to add to my chart is, let's see, where, oh, here we go. Oh, this is why it's not working. That's right, I kind of went a little too fast through all of these solvers up here. Remember, we have the MACD nested into the dawn chain channel. So, let me change this nesting. Alright, so Omar, this will address your question here. Omar wanted me to cover nesting indicators. Alright, so we have the dawn chain channel here, and we have the MACD nested into it. So let me, I'll just kind of start from scratch to give Omar a good example here. So I'm going to go down to the D's, find that dawn chain channel. There we go. Drop it down here. Alright, so I double clicked on the indicator and it dropped it down here, and you can see it just kind of cleared everything out, reset everything. Or you can select an indicator, hit the add new button, and it drops it down. So I'm going to change my period to a 60 period, since that's what we were using before. And the next thing is to nest the TSI indicator into it. So let me drop down to the TSI. Alright, so I'm just selecting it, one click, and then hit the nest input button. And there we go. And there it is. So it's just as simple as that. So one thing to note is something like the MACD. Let me go to the MACD. So if I can nest the MACD, so I'm taking the MACD output, feeding it into the TSI, and then the TSI is being fed into the dawn chain. But one thing to note, like the MACD, right, it has 3 different plots. So you got to make sure that you have the right plot, the right data series selected that you want to feed, right? So we could feed the average plot into the TSI, or we can nest the difference into the TSI. So, right, so for indicators that have multiple plots, you need to make sure that you have the correct plot that you want selected to feed into the indicator. So, alright, so let me remove that MACD, and we're just back to the TSI being fed into the dawn chain. So let me go through and fix the rest of these. So what I can do is I can click that MACD and just remove it, and then go down to the TSI, and look, you notice that the nested button has disappeared. So if this happens, what you just need to do is select the indicator down below so that it was touched, and then go back up and select your indicator again that you want to nest, right? And now you can see I can click the nested button. So, alright, there we go. So there's another one. Alright, so I'm going to remove that MACD, select the dawn chain, and then go back up and find my TSI, nest it in there, and there we go. Alright, just a couple more to go. Oops. Yeah, you gotta watch out for those double clicks. I accidentally double clicked and I got rid of the dawn chain, so let me go find the dawn chain again. There we go. Okay, I think I took care of all of them. Then we just check through. Yeah, this Dawn chain doesn't have anything nested into it, so we're good there. All right. I'm just scanning through the solvers real quick and just looking at the indicators. Just checking. One last check here. Alright, so now what I should add to my chart as well so I can visually see what these solvers are looking at is I should add a Dawn chain, right, that's nested onto the TSI. So let me close this out. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the Dawn chain onto the TSI indicator here. Alright, so the TSI is on panel 2. Alright, so to do this in NinjaTrader, go down to the D's. Alright, okay, grab my Dawn chain. Period set to 60. So I need to change my input series. Change that to the TSI. Okay, TSI. And this indicator only has one plot, so there's no plots to select. I'm just using the default values, so it makes this go a lot quicker. And I need to put this on the correct panel. So there, put this on panel 2. And I'm going to turn the markers off. Don't need the markers. Let's see, anything else? I'll hit apply and see what we get here. Yeah, alright. I think I'm going to make the plot just a little different, just to kind of break it up. Alright, there we go. So I think essentially what Daniel had figured out is that he's using the Dawn chain to kind of figure out when things diverge. Because if you look at the Dawn chain, you know, up on here, up on price, right, the Dawn chain goes along and then it drops down. Right, so there's a difference in the Dawn chain price. So, right, so when you get a what do you call it, a long divergence, basically price is moving lower, and so the Dawn chain channel moves lower. But then on the indicator here, what happens is the indicator should be making a higher movement, so your Dawn chain moves up. And let's see, I'm just kind of thinking about this. It doesn't look like this is working out for the MACD. Let's see. So we do have a divergence here. And I guess technically we do have a divergence here. Yeah. I think what the system is doing, though, is it's actually kind of doing this. So it's referencing, right, this one low point back here, and then referencing every time the indicator makes a swing point here. Yeah, that's what must be going on. Yep, such as that. And yeah, so this is all working out because price keeps stepping down as all these divergences are being made. So it works in some aspects. I think one thing that'll help is if you fine-tune the dawn chain period to kind of the speed of your indicator. I think that would help quite a bit. So I think, you know, the TSI indicator, I've got it working pretty quickly. So let's see. Dan had mentioned using 11 and 21, which will slow it down quite a bit. So let's take a look here. Yeah, so with the TSI with the higher settings, slowing the TSI down, that might work a little better with the dawn chain being set to a 60 period. Alright, so let's go through and fix all this. So I can just go straight to the list of solvers here and quickly, oh, look at that. Looks like, yeah, it looks like I missed one of the solvers, unless that solver's not on the logic board. But let's switch this over to the TSI. Let's remove that. Switch this over to the TSI. And change the settings. Oh, let's see, it's just the name here. Let me correct the name on these solvers as well. So what I'm doing is I'm updating the names of the solvers and changing the period values on all the TSI indicators so that it matches what we have on the chart. Alright, so the solver name, I needed to replace that MACD in one more spot, and then in the indicator settings down here, I need to update the period settings. And I missed a couple of TSI settings. So let me go back and correct these here too. Let's see. Oh, got that one. There we go. I missed one at the very beginning. Alright guys, just going through this a little more diligently, making sure I'm not missing any TSI settings that need to be changed. So my microphone is on. I'm just being quiet as I'm doing this, just to make sure I don't overlook anything. Alright, we're getting there. Nearly done. So, just to kind of reiterate, what I'm doing is I'm changing the TSI period settings to slow everything down. So I'm slowing down the TSI indicator so that it works a little better with the dawn chain being set to a 60 period. You know, so a 60 period on the dawn chain is pretty long. And so I think either I could have shortened the dawn chain period, you know, down from 60 down to say something like 30 or something like that, or I could speed up the indicator settings. So it's I think this is going to help, and we'll find out here in a moment. Okay. Well, let's see what we have now. Alright, we have that. Yeah, we have a bunch of like all these little micro Looking at these signals, it just doesn't look like the settings in BloodHound are matching what's on the chart. Alright, so I'm going to double check my solvers in BloodHound again, just to make sure that I got all the TSI period settings correct. Alright, let me just make sure here. 11 and 21, okay. Alright, 11 and 21, 11, 21, 11, 21, 11, 21. Alright, so far so good. This pan feature right here, this is my middle mouse button. So on my mouse, the scroll wheel, I can press it down. It's actually a button if I press on the scroll wheel, and that's what this panning does. That's how I get this pan mode. Or of course you can just use the pan button up here to pan around and just turn it on and off. Alright, that's well, okay, I know I have all the indicator settings correct, so now I guess the next step is to really dive into the logic here and see what's needed to get it to work correctly. Let me just kind of scan through the chart here and look for some other signals. Looks like only the long divergences are triggering, so alright. Alright, so it's debug, really debug time, so I'm really going to have to dive deep into this and see what's needed to get this to work with the TSI. Okay, so this solver is comparing the TSI to the Dawn chain. And let's see what exactly on the Dawn chain. I wonder, maybe when I switched this over from the MACD to, sorry, before I make that assumption, let me check a couple others here. Oh, okay. All right. So, yeah, okay. I got it. So this solver here is acting as a filter, and so when the TSI is above the midline, right, of the Dawn chain, we can see where it's acting as a filter. It's in a long state, and when it's below, it's acting as a filter for only short outputs or a short state. Let's see. Which seems a little backwards. Yeah, I see. We're only getting long signals when TSI is above the mean line of the Dawn chain. I don't think that's correct. That's actually, I think what I'm going to do is reverse the outputs and see if that fixes it. Alright, yeah, I think technically that's working a little better. Alright, so let me explain what's going on here. You know, this one's a pretty easy one to follow. Right, so and This one right here is pretty easy to follow. Price moved down, indicator moved up. Now this guy, so here's what's going on here. With our dawn chain channel set to 60 period, remember we're looking way back here, so the system is looking for the indicator setting way back there, and then looking forward to here. And if we look at price, we can see this. So price is going from there and came down to here. Yeah, so that's what's going on there. Let me shrink this up a little bit, and we'll look through the solvers here. We'll look through these solvers and kind of back engineer the system here. There we go. Alright, so let's see, these list of solvers, we're checking to see if the TSI one bar back equals the dawn chain. Okay, yeah, so what this solver's doing, we can see that whenever the indicator equals the upper band of the dawn chain, we can see that the output is missing. So there's no short output. So let's see, let me see if I can find an example here. Yeah, so like this short divergence here. Oops. There, we got a short divergence here. So as the indicator, keeps hugging the dawn chain, as the indicator and the dawn chain equal each other, that's definitely not, you're not in a divergent state, right? You have to wait for the indicator to essentially pull away from the dawn chain, or to start moving down, which creates a swing point on the indicator. And also, more importantly, when your indicator does make a divergent point, like we have here, right, the indicator is not going to be near the dawn chain channel, right? It's going to be lower. So always going to be lower on the secondary swing point. So we know that in in this situation, we're definitely not in a divergence area, right? So our indicator is essentially, it's making like new highs. So therefore, we definitely don't. So this kind of makes sure that we don't get any signals when our indicator is making new highs. And we can see that there's no signals out here. So, right, it's all the short signals are turned off in this type of situation. And then when the indicator pulls away, right, from the dawn chain channel, which is basically tracking the high, this new high that the indicator made. So when the indicator pulls away, now we know that, it's okay to start looking for a short divergence area. And we can see that we have a short output now. And so what we're doing is all of these solvers are looking back at different number of bars. So let me if we zoom in here, remember how I drew the square. Right, remember how I drew the square? Now we can see that the signal, this short signal, is kind of displaced one bar. So that's what each of these are doing. Oops. These solvers are a little too close together. It's hard to grab them. And oh, did I grab the right one? Ah, looks like I might have found something here that So this solver should have looked like the previous two solvers, but with our with our missing short signals, should have been moved forward by a couple more bars. Let's see. So what's going on here? So what I'm trying to do is I'm comparing these solvers here. So I'm checking to see, to make sure that the plot settings are set correctly here. So the upper is a short, the lower is a long. So this guy here, trying to figure out why there's no void in the short signals. Right? There should be this gap in the short signals here, just like the solver above it. And up, there we go. So, looks like somehow I think these, excuse me, the plots got changed. There we go. And all right, so now you can see so the gap in these short signals just keep moving forward one bar, and let's see, and this is looking at something totally different. So to understand what these four solvers are doing, I'm attaching them into a new AND node so we can see what they all look like together. And let's see, and that one too. So here's what they all look like together, and what they're doing is they're making sure that our indicator is not making new highs, and it's making sure that the indicator is not making new lows. Right, so in a divergence, when we're looking for a divergence, if our indicator is making new highs, then essentially our indicator is kind of setting up. It's the beginning. It's the first point in a divergence. Remember, so a divergence requires 2 points, right? So the highest, the first point, which is going to be a higher point, or right. Oops, let's get rid of that. Or or if it's a long divergence, then the indicator is making a new low, right? Setting up point 1, setting up the lowest point before it makes a higher swing. So what these 5 solvers are doing is they're checking to see if the indicator, right, is making the first swing point in a divergence. And of course we definitely don't want any kind of signals, you know, because this first swing point is never going to be a divergence. So we can see that there's this, right, there's no output when these are made. Right, so when our indicator's making a new low, we definitely want to block all the signals coming out of BloodHound, because this is definitely not going to be a divergence. So that's what those are checking for. Alright, so that part's good, and let's see. So I'm going to try and understand what this next one's doing. So this next one is looking at price. It's checking to see if price equals, yeah, it's checking to see if price equals the Dawn chain. So I think it's checking to see if price is making a new high or a new low. And yeah, so I can see that whenever price is up against the Dawn chain, yeah, we're getting a signal there. Which doesn't seem right. You know, yeah, this is probably all due. The reason why some of this stuff is not, doesn't seem to be working right is, I'm going to assume it's due to the difference between the MACD and the TSI indicators. You know, because they're different oscillating indicators, right? The MACD goes above and below the zero line, whereas the and the TSI does the same. Oh, okay. I guess that's a wrong assumption. Oh, I see what the solver's doing. Okay. So this solver's doing is, look, if we see the swing point way over here, so oh, wait. Sorry about that. I'm looking in the wrong spot. That's right. This solver is all about price. This is looking at price. So let me get rid of that. And let's work on this. So what that solver is doing is it's checking to see if price is making another low. So we can see as soon as price comes down to the Dawn chain, basically it's kind of saying that, you know, hey, price is right. So for a long divergence, we need price to either be equal or price to be lower. And so if price is essentially touching the Dawn chain, then we know that price, price is either equal to the previous low or price is making a newer low. So that's what this guy is doing. This guy is checking to make sure that price is making a new low, or, you know, like over here, it's checking to make sure that price is making a new high for the second point. So let's see, you could probably So this is something I don't use very often, but I think in this case it's going to be very handy. So we have this description field in the solver. So I'm going to put a description in here. So this solver is, let's see, it's checking, checking that price makes, let's see, let's see, a new, actually, let's see, the second point, let's see, alright, yeah, so what we're doing is we're checking to see if price makes the second point lower, lower, higher, high. So in this case, this would be point 1, and this would be point 2 of the divergence. So, the one thing I wish this toolbar had was text. I wish there was a way we could throw a text button on there. And so remember, in a divergence, you always have 2 points, or 2 swing points. Right? So a divergence requires a swing point 1 and a swing point 2, right? And the second swing point is always what's giving us the divergence. So we can see that solver is identifying the swing point, the second swing point, and make sure that price is making a higher high. And if we scroll over, we can see right here, like this is the second point, because price is making lower lows as compared to this back here. So that's what that solver is doing, is kind of checking for the second point of price. Alright, and let's see the next step here. So this is going to be making sure So if we're looking at this example here, price is continuing to move down. So we can't have a divergence yet until price starts moving up and makes the swing point, right? So in a long divergence, you have to have a swing point made. So as long as price is moving down, there's no swing point made until price finally moves up. And so that's what all these solvers are doing. Is this is making sure that price is moving in the right direction as well. So we got to make sure that price is moving up before our divergence happens. So if we look at my little arrow here on the chart, right, price is moving up. We'll mark with 2 arrows. And then remember, if we look back at this solver here that we were just talking about, and So if I look at just the solver, right, it's telling us when the solver is, or when price is hugging the dawn chain and the price is making new lows. And then what we're doing is we're extending this forward. We're extending those signals forward a few bars, so that way we can give price a chance to start moving up, which then ultimately creates that swing point right there. So in order for the swing point here to be made, price has to start moving up. And so we extended the condition where price is moving down. So price is making a new lower low, but then we extended it forward so that when price starts moving up, the two signals overlap. Right, so we can see how the two signals are overlapping here. So once again, this set of logic is making sure that price is moving in the right direction on the second point, of the divergence. And let's see what else we got here. All right, this is looking at a price inflection. However, well, I'm not exactly sure what this is doing. I mean, I know what the solver is doing, but I'm not sure what its purpose is in the divergence, but let's walk through this. So, so we built a system here that's essentially looking at, it looks like when price is moving down for at least 3 bars, price moves down for at least 3 bars, we're getting a signal. So as he's identifying when price keeps moving in the same direction, and then he inverted that. So it looks like when price keeps moving down like it does, we can see that there's no short signal. So it looks like we're trying to make sure that BloodHound doesn't give us a divergence signal too soon. So he found a way, to make sure that when price keeps moving down, that we don't get a signal as price keeps moving down. Instead, we're going to wait for price to start moving back up. Kind of looks like what it's doing, and remember, everything is plugged into this one AND node. So if I wanted to kind of check to see how this price direction, how this bar direction logic and this other logic here works together, I can connect them together with an AND node and kind of see what's happening here. Yeah, so it's looking like he's built a complex way to check for when price basically reverses direction, right? So when price is making these swing points here. So you probably had to do all of this because depending on the type of bar, type of chart, things are going to work a little differently. So if I'm looking at a range chart versus a minute chart versus a Renko chart, all these things kind of affect price movement and affect your indicator movement. So I think he's kind of built in a more complex system to work with all the different chart types. So I think that's probably what all that's doing together. And now let's see what this is doing. So let's see, if I'm looking at these solvers, so these solvers back here, they look like they're all looking at price, and this solver is looking at the TSI indicator to control the if-then node. And so it looks like, yeah, depending on the slope of the TSI indicator, depends if we're going to look at price or if we're going to look at the TSI, the inflection of the TSI indicator. Let's see. So it's an interesting system. I'm trying to figure out how, what part of a divergence condition this is actually trying to solve for. So yeah, so he's using the TSI, the direction of the TSI indicator, to determine if we want to be using price or if we want to be using the TSI indicator to check for something. Well, I think when I fixed that one solver, that looks like it kind of fixed the whole system. Yeah. Yeah, if you guys remember back, I had, I think it was this solver here. Yeah, the solver that was looking back 3 bars, and somehow the plots selections got, the plot selections on the Don chain were set to the mean, and I corrected it, and I think that's what was broken with the system from the beginning. So I think that's what fixed it all. Yeah, so I think now as I look at this, everything looks a lot better. So let's see, if we look at, right, price is essentially equal there, and we have our indicator moving down, and in this case, price made a newer high, and our indicator still made a newer low. So yeah, I think this looks like it's all working correctly now after fixing that one solver. So let's see. Yeah, it looks like we had a really small micro divergence right there. here we had a pretty big swing divergence right there. Yep. Yeah, this short divergence looks good. That's pretty standard, nice normal one. Yeah, pretty long divergence there. And there we go. Yeah, so I think that got it fixed there for you, Dan. You know, something to kind of note, you can really kind of constrain these divergences by changing the period of your Dawn chain channel indicator. Right, so if you shorten this up, you know, it'll look for shorter divergences. You know, it'll eliminate these longer divergences. And yeah, I'm trying to think of how you could do the opposite. Let's just say you wanted to look only for these longer, you know, you only wanted to look for these longer divergences and kind of get rid of these micro divergences. Not sure what to do off the top of my head. That would probably be better for another workshop, because I see I've already gone 2 hours into today, so I'd like to kind of wrap this up. You know, I know that was, to me, I kind of felt like this was a little confusing, and that was because I was having to back engineer how this works myself. Since I didn't build this, you know, knowing how this works off the top of my head, no, I didn't know that, so I had to back engineer it and kind of figure it out. And it looks like, you know, Daniel has a different way of thinking. I probably would approach this a little differently than Daniel would have, but you know, I know every time I looked at this, I think I like what Daniel built. He did build this divergence system, I think, a really good way. So pretty, even though it looks complex, but when you look at the chart and you see that all that was needed was really just the Dawn chain channel, you know, to kind of track the highs and the lows of the price and the indicator, you know, that kind of has a lot of simplicity in itself. You know, even though in BloodHound you still had to build a lot of solvers, and effectively, you know, what these are all kind of doing is that all these solvers each kind of have their own little filtering technique, you know, to make sure, you know, that price is making, you know, a newer low, you know, so there's a couple of solvers, you know, doing that filtering, you know, and then there's a couple of solvers making sure that the indicator isn't, you know, making sure that the indicator is above the Dawn chain channel for the second point, you know, for the divergence as well. All right, well, with that, let me get through some of these and see if there's any questions in here that I can address before I wrap this up here. Let's see, Mike had asked if I could put the links to the Big Mike posts. I'm sorry, Mike, I have no idea what those links are. You'll just have to kind of go and search for yourself. And in fact, Big Mike doesn't allow linking to a site anymore. So you can get yourself banned off of his site if he catches you doing that. So, like I said, if you just search for toolbar in the download section on Big Mics, you should find it right away. You should find that toolbar indicator right away. All right. Well, thanks, Dan. Dan thinks the system's working pretty good as I have it. So, good. That's good to know. Let's see. Okay, so Dan's asking a good question. Do all the dawn chain indicators have to be 60 or 40? Yes, I'd say for it to work properly, they all have to be the same. I did notice, yeah, I did notice in the, looks like in some of the, yeah, in some of the names, looks like some of these say 40, but actually they are all set to 60. I'm pretty sure that these, yeah, see, it was set to 60. Yeah, so some of the names weren't quite correct. Didn't actually match the indicator settings. Yeah, 60. So I don't know. Maybe it'll work better if these get changed back to 40. I don't know. Maybe, obviously, Daniel had the dawn chain set to a 40 period at one point, but now they're all set to a 60 period. I don't know. Maybe Daniel thought it worked better with the 60 period instead of a 40 period. So there, I'll correct a couple of these names on here. Yeah. All right. I think I corrected all the names there, Dan. So yeah, once again, you know, make sure that I think the dawn chain has to be set. They all have to be set to the same period. Don't mix and match your periods in BloodHound or on your chart. Let's see. Omar's making a comment about the text. Oh, yeah, that's right. There is a text thing right there. Ah, all right. I always forget that's there. Yeah, one of these days I'd like to have a quick button that just has like numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. You just click on it and it just throws like a number 1 on your chart, number 2, or A, B, C. You know, like some quick buttons to throw some quick text up there. That would be kind of cool if I could get that to work. So Van's asking a good question. Where do we archive these? Where do we archive these workshop templates? Well, we were archiving them on our website. Let me show you how to get there. And I had made a decision that, you know, I was hoping that I'd made a decision that I really wanted you guys to build these systems as you watch the recording, or, you know, as you're watching the workshop. And so I stopped posting the workshop template files. I stopped posting them up unless we got into something that was really complex, and then I would post it up there. And, you know, I guess I'm kind of changing my mind on that. You know, I've heard from quite a few people, you know, that they've learned a lot faster by actually taking the workshop templates and kind of back engineering what's going on. You know, taking, and I guess I kind of understand that. That's kind of how I learned how to program. Is you know, I'd copy other simple programs and kind of figured out how programming worked that way. So I think what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start posting all of, let's see, I'm going to start posting all of these workshop BloodHound files back up on the website, and I'll show you where they're going to be. So if we go to sharkindicators.com, and if we go to support and then learn BloodHound, and I need to stretch my browser out a little bit more. And all the way at the bottom down here, it says template files. Hopefully you can see that. It says template files. If I click on that, that'll take me down. This is kind of a list of all the files that have been uploaded onto our site. So you can see there's some example code. This is if you are a programmer and you know how to write your own strategy. These are like some example code to start building your own strategy. You know, so you could build your own version of Raven and add to it other stuff. So then now you can see right here is where all the BloodHound templates are. So you can go into here and get all the BloodHound templates. And so there they are. And if I go back now with all of those BloodHound, with all these BloodHound templates, there's also a matching chart template. And unfortunately, WordPress doesn't have a way for us to easily match these up, but there is a chart template that matches up with it. So let's see. Oh yeah, there's a divergence system that I had built a while back. It's not as universal as this divergence system that Daniel made. So Daniel improved upon it quite a bit. So if you want to, so let's say you wanted to get this older divergence system, right? This is the chart template. So you can download that chart template. And then if we go back to the BloodHound templates, and we should look through, and there should be a matching name. Yep, so here's the matching name. So, and there's the actual BloodHound file. So if you match the names up, you can match up the BloodHound file with NinjaTrader's chart template file. All right. And just to show you quickly where they go, so if you go into your NinjaTrader 7 folder, you'll see there's a templates folder in here, and you'll see there's a BloodHound folder. All right, so the BloodHound go in here, obviously, and NinjaTrader's chart templates go in this folder here. All right, so all the files from this chart templates go into this chart folder underneath templates. Okay. So Roland was having a question about using a CCI indicator and several solvers and getting all the signals to join together to get a final output. So I think, oh, Roland is still here. Okay. Hey, Roland, I need a little more information. So, Roland, I kind of, I think understanding the threshold solver with the CCI is pretty simple, but when you're combining the moving average slope, you're saying must be an agreement. So I kind of need some more details. Like are you building a counter trend system or a trend system? Because that might change the way some of the solvers outputs are set. So like a lot of people, they're looking for the CCI to cross above 200, but then they're looking for a counter trend signal. So if the CCI crosses above the positive 200, they're actually wanting to get a short signal out of that because they're looking for price to reverse because you're in an extreme oversold situation. So Roland, if you could send me an email kind of with some more details of how how you're using, are you looking for a long signal or a short signal when the CCI gets to 100, 200, whatever your values are. If you can give me a little more detail, send me an email. We can give you an answer back, or I could save this for next week and build it next week. But in any case, Roland, I need a little more detail to give you a correct answer. So I just ask you send us an email in, and let me get you the email address again. So, all right, yep. So there you go. Just send us in a little more detail, that way I can understand if it's a trending system, counter-trending system, and whatnot. And we'll get your question answered, and if it's a good one, I'll show it. I'll even show it for next Friday's workshop. All right, guys. With that, I'm going to wrap this up. You guys have a good weekend, and I hope to see you next Friday. All right. Bye-bye, guys.